This girl received a very strange envelope. On the back of the envelope was written the words, "Want to play?" Inside the letter was a photo of a blindfolded girl. The girl's name was also written below, Lauren, but she had been missing for 9 years. At this moment, the woman realized that someone was secretly taking pictures. She turned around and saw only a man in a red jacket hurriedly leaving. Disappearance, cornering, murder, assault, incredible manipulation tricks. Every detail challenged the limits of humanity. The purpose behind it made people feel regretful. Hotel reporter Miran once found a girl who had been missing for many years. She combined that story with her own experience of being abused to write such a famous novel. Miran's archive was filled with investigation files of a series of missing cases. Among them was the case of the girl in the photo, Lauren. This was a case that she could not let go of. Lauren attended the private school, ACO, which is the top school in Malaga. According to reports, the last person to see Lauren before she disappeared was her younger brother. The police later found her phone in a trash can at the train station. They speculated that she threw the phone away to avoid being tracked, so she was classified as a runaway. But when the photo of her tied up appeared, the police's deduction was dismissed. After Miran finished talking to the instructor, she hung up the phone and looked at a flyer. The night before, the police received a report from a group of young people. They found a body in the abandoned building. When the police and their teammates carefully entered, the crows flapped their wings in panic. Then strange lights flashed. Everything showed that this place was not suitable for long-term stay. The two police officers entered the deepest room. They were shocked to see a cross in the middle of the room. The victim's body was hung from it with a rope. The victim's name was Allison, 19 years old. A few days ago, her grandmother reported her missing. The results showed that the stab wound to the abdomen caused blood loss, combined with respiratory failure due to poisoning. The time of death was estimated to be Saturday night. There were no signs of resistance on her body. The most confusing thing was that there was a cross-shaped knife wound on her arm. Looking at the shape, it did not look like it was caused by someone else. The police took away all of Allison's belongings when she was alive. Allison's grandmother was sitting in the living room, feeling tormented. She did not know how to explain to Allison's mother. She told the policewoman that Allison was a very good student and won scholarships every year. She worked as a janitor at ACO University and saw Allison every day. In the past few months, she had not seen Allison show any unusual behavior. But when she said this, there was something strange on her face. Miran returned to the newsroom after her vacation and learned that the editor-in-chief had assigned her a new associate. Allison, who was used to working alone, was burdened by this. But Allison was now reporting on a major scandal that had caused a stir in the public. The Allison case that the police discovered last night also forced Miran to start investigating. Coincidentally, Allison had also studied at ACO University. Even more coincidentally, Miran's associate had also studied there for a few years. They were students at the same university, so meeting the principal was not difficult. The two entered the principal's office. By chance, they saw the principal saying goodbye to Alberto, a big shot who ran the largest charity fund in Malaga. Alberto was also a member of the school board. The principal was deeply impressed with Allison. When she first started school, he often discussed passages in the Bible that confused her. Miran boldly brought up Lauren's case. Less than 10 years, same school, one girl missing, one girl dead. Both were about the same age. They were both struggling to get scholarships. Anyone who looked at it could see that the two cases were hardly unrelated. However, the principal still thought they were just normal girls, and the police had already classified Lauren as a runaway. He didn't want to say more. Then the principal held a meeting at school about Allison's case. Miran saw a familiar face in the crowd, Lauren's younger brother, Nacho. 9 years ago, when Miran was following Lauren's disappearance, she had talked to Nacho. Miran promised she would definitely find Lauren, but she still hadn't. When they met again this time, Nacho was a bit evasive. He didn't want to talk about Lauren anymore. Then he left. ACO is a non-denominational school that is not registered with Catholic School Association, but the principal and most of the students' families are Catholic. Miran's instincts tell her that this case is definitely related to the school, but without evidence, Miran doesn't know where to start. The photo of the girl is too blurry to see her face clearly. Miran can't confirm whether the girl is Lauren or not. The instructor advises Miran not to be so stubborn. Maybe it's just a prank. They have a disagreement and argue. Then the teacher rushes to the school to teach. Before leaving, he looks back at Miran but doesn't say anything more. When he gets to school, he is accidentally bumped into by a man in a red jacket, but he doesn't care. He even texts Miran to apologize. But Miran is upset, so she doesn't pay attention. Her colleague also looks at the articles related to Lauren and sees that this disappearance and Allison's case have some similarities. The most important thing now is to find the real connection between the two cases. Only then will the news be truly valuable. At the church, a bearded man looked very weak. He had to muster up the courage to go forward forward and comfort Allison's crying grandmother. Meanwhile, the teacher was teaching at school when he suddenly felt dizzy. His eyes were blurred and he couldn't read the words on the screen. He struggled to stand up to open the classroom window for some fresh air, but collapsed on the spot. The last news Mirren received was that the teacher had died. The police concluded that he had a heart attack. They did not investigate further. The relationship between Mirren and the teacher was more than family. This shock deeply hurt her. The saddest thing was that the memories of each other only stopped at the argument. Especially when Mirren heard the teacher's remorseful voice message, she blamed herself even more. Mirren buried herself in the case to forget her sadness. She found out where Lauren had been. She and her partner immediately went there. Lauren's aunt and uncle raised her and Nacho. The principal took them both home every day. Until one day, Lauren met a boy named Thomas, the only son of Alberto, a rich and powerful young man. Lauren's aunt suspected that Thomas had harmed Lauren because after the incident, Thomas did not take any action or explain. Before Mirren left, she caught a glimpse of a large, burned scar on Nacho's back. Next to it was Lauren's bedroom. After observing, Mirren told her colleague her guess that Lauren, like her aunt and uncle, was religious. In the room, besides a few religious decorations, most of them were pictures of Lauren and Thomas, or mementos between the two. Lauren definitely put all her feelings on Thomas. Besides relatives, Lauren probably only knew Thomas, so her aunt's guess was quite well founded. Lauren's disappearance was closely related to Thomas. The police found a piece of paper with a phone number in Allison's notebook. The handwriting matched Allison's. They found out that the phone number belonged to a man named Roberto, the bearded man who had comforted Allison's grandmother in the church. Unexpectedly, as soon as they went to ask him, he turned around and ran away. Since they didn't want to take over the area, the police had to watch him disappear. But he didn't have many places to go. The church was one of them. With the help of the priest, the police restrained him in the sanctuary. He ran away because he was afraid that the police would find the contraband on him. He admitted that he had been in contact with Allison. Before that, Allison couldn't stand the pressure and bought a lot of contraband. She even said something crazy, like she was a mystery of God, but he didn't know what she meant. Allison's time of death was determined to be Saturday night. On Friday night, when he delivered the goods, he saw a man in a red coat next to Allison. Unfortunately, it was too dark so he couldn't see the man's face clearly. Thomas Taylor was also a student at ACO, but his father was too powerful. When Mirren asked principal, he only advised her to let go. On the way home, Mirren discovered that someone had opened her car door and left a piece of paper on the driver's seat. Only after death can one be reborn. You are the mystery of God, and you want to play. There was a website address on the back. Comparing the handwriting with the original letter, it was indeed the same person. Mirren was scared, so she hurried home. Based on the hint on the piece of paper, she guessed password. She was about to log in when the computer suddenly froze. Just then, Nacho texted to meet Mirren. He said he had something to tell about Lauren. The meeting place was a party. Someone recognized Mirren as the reporter who wrote a novel with a narrative style. This person made fun of her story of being abused. Before Mirren could get angry, Nacho rushed in to fight with that person. After being stopped, the fight stopped. What Nacho wanted to tell Mirren was that Thomas was very jealous. For trivial reasons, Thomas argued with Lauren, to the point that he had violent tendencies. So Nacho also believed that his aunt's guess was correct. Lauren might have been killed by Thomas. Nacho grew up with Lauren, so after his sister disappeared, he thought a lot. He also thought that no matter where she was, all that was left was regret. He just wanted to find his sister's body and give her a proper burial. Mirren herself promised 9 years ago that she would definitely find Lauren. Even though Mirren hadn't done it, Nacho still believed her. The forensic team had completed the autopsy. They discovered that Allison had signs of pregnancy 2 or 3 months ago, but she was forced to have an abortion. Mirren's partner was still having a headache because he couldn't find a way to contact Thomas. That night, he suddenly received a strange call. Thomas took the initiative to find him and made an appointment on the yacht docked at pier. At the same time, Mirren returned home and found that her computer automatically accessed an anonymous chat page. The mysterious person called himself God and invited Mirren to join the soul game. Then the screen flashed. Mirren slowly approached and suddenly heard a girl's shrill scream. God immediately sent a message saying that without suffering, one cannot enter heaven. Then, the 24-hour countdown clock began. Mirren's partner finally met Thomas. Since Lauren's disappearance, Thomas had been fed up with the media harassment, so Thomas chose to live in seclusion. Thomas first denied the baseless speculations. Thomas said he loved Lauren deeply. No matter what, he would not kill her. But Thomas also felt that Lauren's disappearance was mysterious. Speaking of this, Thomas showed Mirren's partner a few things. Mirren asked Nacho at school to find out if anyone had ever heard of the soul game, but she did not notice that the man in the red coat had sneaked into her apartment. The police investigated Allison's medical records, but they could not recover the relevant surgery documents. It was clear that she did not go to the public hospital. When they went to ask Principal principal. They accidentally caught him comforting a female student. The girl was still wiping away tears. Speaking of Allison, the principal said that he had confessed everything he knew. She was an excellent student. She had never had an early relationship with any male student in school. Other than that, he had nothing more to say. When the policewoman mentioned that Allison had been pregnant, the principal said that women should not make that choice. If he had known earlier, he would have persuaded her to keep her life, because that act was considered completely taboo in religion. Mirren's partner got the entire police file on Lauren's case from Thomas. The press rumored that the last person to see Lauren before she disappeared was Nacho, but the report clearly stated that there was another witness at the scene who had also talked to Lauren, and this information was hidden by the police. That witness was the owner of the flower shop near the bus station. Since it was not yet opening time, while waiting, Mirren asked her partner if she had ever heard of the Soul Game. She suspected that this game was related to ACO. Mirren's partner recalled that when he was studying at ACO, he had heard his friends mention a secret challenge. It was roughly that when someone was giving him trouble, he had to complete a series of tasks. It sounded like a violent welcome to new students, but those were just rumors. He didn't know the details. Seeing the flower shop owner open the door, Mirren immediately got out of the car. After talking, Mirren learned that on the day Lauren went missing, she had come to pick flowers. Then, a luxury car drove up. Lauren seemed to know the car owner. After saying goodbye, they left together. Not long after, people heard that Lauren was missing. The flower shop owner told the police exactly the same thing, but since then, there has been no response. So why did the police have to hide this important clue when Lauren went missing? Lauren's social circle was very small, so how could she have known the owner of the luxury car? She even left with that person. Right now, the most suspicious thing was the Soul Game. Everyone knew that the rich and powerful liked to seek excitement. Was it possible that the owner of the luxury car was related to the Soul Game? If Lauren's disappearance was related to that game, then perhaps Allison, who shares many similarities, was also involved. Thinking of this, Mirren looked up the keyword ACO school game accident and found out that there was news that a student named Boha had a serious car accident. Nacho and Boha used to be in the same class. He was very introverted. If Mirren went by herself, he probably wouldn't agree to talk. So Nacho volunteered to take Mirren to Boha's house. On the way, Mirren expressed her doubts for a long time. Mirren always felt that clues she had gathered about Lauren weren't very real. Everyone said she was a good child, a devout believer, and flawless. But no one was inherently perfect. People have many sides. Why did they paint her information so beautifully? Victims don't have to be perfect. It doesn't matter if they're good or bad. Nacho told Mirren that his family had a fire and both of his parents died. That's where the scar on his back came from. Back then, Lauren risked her life to pull him out of the fire. Later, Nacho suffered from PTSD. Every night, Nacho was afraid and asked Lauren to help him escape from his nightmares. Now, no one could save him. Mirren and Nacho rang the doorbell. They saw a shadowy figure through the window, but the intercom system did not respond. Only when Mirren mentioned the Soul Game did Boshia mysteriously tell them to go to the nearby tunnel. 10 minutes later, Mirren finally met Boshia. The incident left him with a terrible scar on his face. To him, his parents did not care about him. His friends at school were all bullies. His existence was like that of a marginal person. But one day, he received a piece of paper similar to the one Mirren received. It said, "Do you want to play?" and a strange website. From then on, he became familiar with God's graffiti. Let's call it God's painting. Although they had never met before, the other person treated him like a friend. The other friend patiently listened to his every word. So Boshia followed the instructions and began the challenge. The first time he cut a cross on his hand. The second time was to drive a motorbike at high speed on the highway. The police recovered data from Allison's phone and found that 3 months ago, she had searched for information about gynecological clinics, including a private one. If the police and their colleagues rushed to investigate, they saw a large crowd gathered in front of the door. The doctor said that Allison looked at the price list and then left. The group of people were anti-surgical believers. They often harassed women who came to see them, even making leaflets criticizing them. In this group of enthusiastic protesters, the police were familiar with one face. It was Lauren's uncle. He had advised Allison many times before that if she turned around, it meant she would stop that idea. So 9 years ago, the missing girl Lauren had an uncle, and 9 years later, that uncle knew Allison. Thomas gave his partner more information. He investigated and found that 3 German girls went missing at the same time. At that time, there was news that a criminal gang took the girls to the villa and filmed dark videos. They suspected that the car Lauren got in belonged to this gang. Their mark was a slide. The 24-hour countdown was over. Duia sent Mirren a photo of a box downstairs in the apartment that the red-coated man had left behind. It contained a box cutter, just like what the underlings had described. Mirren's first challenge was to teach herself to make a cross on her hand. In return, Duia sent a video video recording of Allison's challenge. It seemed Mirren had guessed correctly. Allison had also participated in the game. Now the only way to get closer to the truth was to continue the mission. Mirren thought for a moment, then did as she was asked and filmed the whole process. After passing the test, she wanted to ask Dewey for information about Lauren. But that person said she had to reach the realm of purity first. Then the screen jumped to a 10-hour countdown. Just then, the doorbell rang repeatedly. Her partner couldn't reach her, so he had to go to the place to report important news. When he saw the shoot symbol, his heart skipped a beat. It turned out that the shoot had trapped Mirren in the bar years ago. They switched her drinks, leading to a nightmare that lasted for hours. The bad guys also filmed the fight and sold it everywhere. They were the shoot gang. If Lauren's disappearance was related to them, it all made sense. Because they had power, they could have manipulated the police investigation. When the police and their colleague went to Lauren's uncle's house, he justified his actions in front of the clinic's gate with religious freedom. Nominally, it was still within the law. His set considered those who aborted the fetus to be crazy. The followers took turns advising, and eventually more tragedies arose. It was not strange that he advised Allison to turn back. Moreover, on Saturday night when Allison had an accident, he was always at a friend's house. He had a perfect alibi, and this friend was actually his lover. This was also considered a rather satirical part of the movie. In the uncle's belief, he did not accept that the birth of life was wrong, but wasn't it wrong to be unfaithful to one's spouse? After saying goodbye, the policewoman's lover received a phone call. She learned how Allison had performed the surgery. She immediately informed Allison's grandmother. Allison's computer records contained complete instructions on how to perform the surgery herself, as well as a history of purchasing certain drugs. Hearing this, the grandmother finally couldn't hold back her tears. She admitted that she had known about the consequences of this all along, but she had never felt heartbroken by Allison's pain. She also didn't find out who the child's biological father was. She just felt too humiliated. She even thought that Allison's death was a punishment from God. From Allison's perspective, she was completely helpless. Even her family couldn't help. That's why they let the poisonous crow take advantage of the situation. At this time, Mirren and her colleague were in new trouble. Alberto knew that the colleague had connections with Thomas, so he immediately sent a lawyer to the newspaper office. He used his position as the authority in Malaga to ask them to stop all contact with Thomas. The strange thing was, if Lauren's disappearance really had nothing to do with Thomas, then why was Alberto so nervous? Mirren asked Alberto if he had ever mentioned the soul game. Alberto's face showed a hint of panic, but he remained calm and denied it. She keenly realized that he was lying. Afterwards, her authority was overruled by the general manager. She had no choice but to do as he asked. Of course, a small difficulty could not make her yield. Her colleague seemed to be determined. He immediately thought of another way. He went with Mirren to meet the local rumormonger. The colleague's father knew him a little. He mentioned a rumor that had never been made public. In March 1983, at the Ringgate School, a girl did something foolish. In order to avoid bringing trouble upon herself, he did not say anything specific. Then he suggested that Mirren and her partner go ask the girl's homeroom teacher. The homeroom teacher had retired and moved to a beach villa. Her daughter didn't want her old mother to be bothered anymore, so she reluctantly declined Mirren's visit. At that time, the 10-hour countdown was about to end. Mirren and her partner were keeping watch nearby. She went home by herself and logged into Duya's website. She was about to take part in the second challenge. Duya said that Mirren's biggest wound was also her biggest fear, and he sent a photo. It was the bar where Mirren had her drink switched and forced her to face the deep pain in her heart. In return, Duya promised to tell her the truth about Lauren's disappearance. At this point, if she backed out halfway, it would be a waste of time. Mirren gathered all her courage and walked into the bar she hadn't been to since the night of the incident. The bar was dominated by green, surrounded by men and women paralyzed by alcohol. Mirren followed Duya's instructions and found a pill in the bathroom. She swallowed it without hesitation. It was just like the night of the incident many years ago. She felt weak in the limbs and dizzy. Sweat poured down her face. She staggered out of the bar. Finally, she collapsed from exhaustion. Before closing her eyes, she saw a person in a red jacket in the crowd. On the other side, he had contacted the homeroom teacher. Since 1983, the homeroom teacher had never forgotten that girl. She was also waiting for someone to come back and ask about that girl. She showed Mirren's partner the 1983 graduation photo. Alberto and the girl were classmates. When he entered school, Alberto was still a good kid. Alberto was just not good at choosing friends. She pointed out that the friend Alberto was playing with at that time was the current principal of the Ringgate School. It was said that the girl was harmed. Perhaps the principal was fully responsible. Years ago, the principal wanted to form a group, so he gathered a few students who were religious. They would discuss the Bible together after school. Later, to ensure that only those with true faith could join the group, the principal set a series of challenges. The girl died from one of those challenges. He called it the spirit game, and the group called it God's punishment. Most of the students at that school were powerful, so the story of the girl was almost completely hidden. No one mentioned it. Late at night, there were still people cleaning the Ringgate school. The principal comforted Ye Fan about Allison. He also told her not to clean up his things today. The grandmother was very grateful for the principal's concern for her grandchild, but she still went to Allison's apartment. Unexpectedly, she found a Bible in the closet with solemn decorations and extremely gruesome bloodstains. This Bible belonged to Allison. After receiving the report, the police came to the scene, although the principal insisted that he did not know where the Bible came from. But the evidence was clear, so he was still taken to the police station for processing. Miran woke up in her house. Luckily, nothing happened last night. She passed the second test. Immediately after, the 5-hour countdown screen appeared again. Her colleague called her. The two of them brought all the information collected from the homeroom teacher to the police. However, Miran did not like this method because the perpetrator of her assault had not yet been caught, even though the police received the report. This made her lose faith in the police soon. That was also the reason why she would rather risk than confess that she participated in the spirit game. According to the information provided by her partner, the police were increasingly suspicious of the principal. Was he still manipulating the students through the spirit game? The nature of the game was to test the faith of the members. If Allison did something against her faith, the principal's motive for murder could be established. But the principal said that after the girl's death in 1983, he had disbanded the Lord's Ferry and stopped the game. Remembering the Bible in the closet, if it was really him, why would the murderer blatantly place the evidence in such a visible place? Wasn't he just walking into a trap? He had a motive, but the appearance of the evidence was too unusual. Was this a trap, or was he simply making excuses for himself? Miran contacted Nacho again. Even though she tried to hide the wound on her wrist, he still noticed. Thanks to his sharp intuition, he guessed that she was involved in the soul game. Both of them wanted to find out the truth about Lauren's disappearance. Miran did not hide it anymore. Nacho was determined to join the investigation. Miran took Nacho home. At this moment, the countdown timer ended. Duya gave Miran the third challenge, telling her to destroy what she valued, her data archive. It not only contained the disappearance records, but also documents. Seeing the truth about Lauren's disappearance getting closer, Miran's heart was torn. She decided to follow Duya's words. On the principal's side, he suddenly had an alibi. The police could not find his fingerprints on Allison's Bible, so they had to immediately release him. What was more important was that Alberto used his power to intervene. At the same time, there was bad news. The disciplinary board decided to fire the principal. Angry, the principal hinted that he knew a secret about Alberto. Alberto did not accept the threat, so he decided to reveal this secret to Miran's colleague. The principal used to be Lauren's homeroom teacher. They both had the same beliefs, so they talked very well. One of them was Lauren betraying Thomas and getting to know a cheap guy and quickly falling in love with him. They often dated in a house called Luke Vaught and even had a child together. Then, Lauren went missing, and that man was Thomas's father. Alberto and Miran followed the request, which was to burn all the documents in the warehouse. When the fire broke out, Miran accidentally saw the man in the red coat standing from afar watching. She immediately rushed to chase him, but the man in the red coat ran away too fast. In just a moment, he lost track. Miran and Nacho returned home. At this time, Duya sent the final challenge. This time, Miran had to tie herself to the cross like Allison with a specific address. Although Miran's investigation was righteous, she also needed to protect her own safety, so she decided not to risk it anymore and reported everything to the police. Nacho seemed to disapprove because he was about to touch the truth of whether Lauren had passed away or not. At this time, all the clues were revealed. In addition to the main characters and the police, there were also the following people in the story. The principal, the founder of the soul game, was also related to the unfortunate girl. Lauren and Allison had both been in contact with him. And Pecto, a powerful person who used to belong to the Duya group, was a classmate of the victim girl and had feelings for Lauren. Thomas, and Pecto's son, was betrayed by Lauren and Thomas himself. Lauren's uncle, who shared the same extreme religious beliefs, believed that taking life was a crime. Nacho suffered a psychological trauma due to the fire. He could not find his sister. Boha, a participant in the soul game and also a survivor. Maybe he had changed after the serious incident and decided to restart the game. Hint, this is an unexpected character. 3 seconds countdown. Start now. The red coat gradually approached. It turned out to be Poha. Miran was taken to an abandoned warehouse in the suburbs. In fact, the photo of the tied girl was not Lauren, but a photo taken by an artist. All Nacho did was to lure Miran into a trap. As for Poha, after surviving the ordeal, he was taken under Nacho's wing. But Poha was used to a life full of fear and confusion. Poha also began to doubt whether the faith he believed in was really correct. After Poha once again witnessed Nacho's cruelty, he resolutely left. But with Nacho's extreme personality, reality. How could he let the traitor go? Miran's partner could not find her whereabouts, so he continued to investigate Lauren's disappearance alone. He met Thomas for the last time and revealed the whole story about Lauren and Alberto. Thomas's mood changed a lot in just a moment, from disbelief to anger to disappointment, but he still gave Miran's partner the address of the greenhouse. Before going there, Miran's partner carefully informed an old policeman he knew. The manager of the greenhouse wanted to talk to Miran's partner privately in the house. In fact, he was to hold him until Alberto arrived. Alberto was very angry because Miran's partner did not listen to his advice. He kept following Lauren's case and even revealed the truth to his most beloved child. Although Alberto pointed his gun at Miran's partner, he still couldn't bear to pull the grass. At that moment, the old policeman brought people. Alberto had no chance of surviving properly, so he turned the gun on himself. The police sealed off the scene and took his partner to the police station. On the way, Miran's partner suddenly discovered a house hidden by trees. It seemed that there were traces of people living there. He even saw some children's toys. When he finished checking the attic, he was surprised to find Lauren and her child. The two of them had been missing for many years. Miran was locked in the warehouse all night. Nacho finally confessed the whole truth. A year ago, he restarted the soul game and improved it. Nacho took advantage of Poha's loneliness to gain his faith. Nacho then targeted Allison and said that she went against his beliefs. To help Allison regain her faith, Nacho arranged a series of challenges, but she couldn't pass the final hurdle and died tragically. As for the Bible, Nacho told Poha to secretly put it in the principal's closet to distract the police. Nacho was very angry that Lauren had left and that Miran was still looking for Lauren. Obviously, he had helped find a missing girl, so why couldn't he find Lauren? So Nacho became more and more crazy and decided to drag Miran into it. The death of the instructor was also due to Nacho's orders. Nacho told Poha to corner the teacher and inject him with insulin, causing him to suddenly have a heart attack. Miran lost control of her emotions. She screamed and fainted. Just as Nacho untied Miran, he discovered that he had been tricked. Taking advantage of his carelessness, she fought back and ran away. Because she was too panicked, he still caught up with her. During the struggle, she controlled him, but she also fainted due to severe injuries. At this time, Poha's mother reported that he had been missing for a whole day. According to the phone location, the police came. They only found Poha's body and Miran's car parked outside the warehouse. If the police immediately organized a blockade of the area and searched. Finally, they found Miran gasping for breath on the beach. A year passed. It seemed that everything was over. Lauren honestly said that it was Alberto who manipulated the police investigation and forced her to hide in that house to give birth. Just because he was afraid that his life would be ruined, Alberto made Lauren keep everything a secret, so she never contacted her family. Miran also disappeared from that night. It was rumored that she had left the media. No one knew her whereabouts. At the same time, in Madrid, armed police raided a laundry. They searched the secret storage behind and discovered a lot of documents about ice slides. It seemed that the story was not over yet. Maybe we have to wait for part 3 to know the final answer. Have you guessed who the killer is? Let's wait for the next part to know the answer. Goodbye, and see you again.